Hi, everyone joining. I'm going to mute us until we're ready to go.
Do you have a way to look at this so you can see everybody instead of just the? Can you make it see everybody instead of just the one person? Oh, I can get closed caption. That'd be nice. Maybe.
Can you hear me?
Put show captions.
don't know where it is. It used to be down here when you clicked on.
Click on that and it makes a list,
Right.
but you can't view them.
Can you hear the echo?
Everyone online, we're just gonna give a couple more minutes and see if anyone else trickles in and then we'll get started. I have muted everybody online. We will have questions and feedback at the end. I will ask you to raise your hand through the Zoom functions and I'll call on you and unmute you at that time. So thank you everyone for virtually participating. We'll get started in just a second. All right, everyone, I'll get us kicked off and started. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Zoe Donnell. I'm the acting town manager for the town of Telluride. One second. Okay, there we go. I'm Zoe Donnell with the town of Telluride. I very much appreciate everyone's time here. Obviously, we are looking at our collaborative development, what we're calling the Carhenge Chair7 development with the ski resort. We'll do a quick round of introductions to the team here. We have partnered with Design Workshop and CCY to help us with the visions that you're seeing here today. I'm going to start off today's meeting by just reminding everybody where we are in this process, that nothing that you see, the boxes on the maps or the details that you find are finite. This is a two-way conversation at this point. We're really looking forward to your feedback. We're excited for what we're presenting to you today and the work we've put into it based off of previous feedback, and this is years in the making. So as a reminder too, it's initiated through our Southwest Area Plan, our SWAP plan, which started in 2018. And through that kind of community feedback, we have honed it in through this process to what you're seeing here today. So I'm really excited to share this with you. I'll jump it over to Chad and then we can go through introductions for anything you want.
Great, yeah, Chad Holding with the ski resort and John Miller in the back, who's part of our team and very involved in this process. We are, we're just excited to get to this next stage. And, the question is how many stages are there in this process? We don't really know, but we know that there are more. And so this team's put a lot of effort into this. The town, Telski, lots of meetings, lots of review of your feedback. And so this next phase is to finally present something to sink your teeth into a little bit and to really get more feedback. And we're excited to get it, whatever it is. We don't expect it all to be positive, but we do hope to get as much of it as we can and from as many of you as possible. So thank you. We'll turn it over to Design Workshop.
Hey everyone, I'm Faraz. I'm with Design Workshop.
Maura Trumbull, I'm with CCY Architects.
Matt Armentrout, also with CCY. Go ahead and get us started.
And just a reminder to
Speak up. All right.
We're playing
you were very
charades.
soft spoken.
That was good charades over there. Chad.
All right, just to catch everybody up, we came out here in March and had our first round of public engagement meetings. Since then, over the last few months, as Chad mentioned, we've been working closely with TSG and Town and Telluride to respond to some of your preliminary comments from that March meeting, address some of your priorities, concerns, as well as continue to move the project forward. And so just to summarize some of those takeaways from last March, we heard that there's a really strong need to satisfy affordable housing within the town. There's also a desire for mixed-use development, kind of a economic vitality generator at the base of the lift. Some hotel and lodging needs that we've started to explore, and improving pedestrian connectivity, safety, accessibility, all those good things that are really important to open space. Concerns we heard was, the desire for more snow melted paths, and kind of addressing some of the safety concerns with people walking through Cimarron Lodge. Some of the adjacent property owners are concerned with access through their properties. Traffic was a big kind of piece of the conversation in March. How are we addressing this increased load? What's the parking strategy? All of that good stuff we started to take a look at to ground truth our numbers and unit counts, as well as just preserving the town character. I think Telluride is very special in terms of its architectural vernacular. How do we celebrate that, continue that, make sure we keep that kind of at the forefront of our design proposal. Moving forward, I think we usually like to start with a framework to kind of guide our process from the get-go. This really starts with identifying what the project goals are, what the objectives are for the development. And over the years, we've started to define what makes a special place. These are called placemaking principles that we've tried to integrate into this process.
How it happens, I guess, in Telluride. You meet someone new, it's every day.
Okay.
So part of the exercise here was we've also crafted a vision statement, which I won't read word for word, but is located on the board there and on the slide. But I will quickly breeze through the core values that we're trying to integrate into this process. Passion, something we bring to every project. Strong enthusiasm, excitement for something that should be pretty exciting for Telluride. Integrity, a strong code of moral and ethical values. Teamwork, I think this project is unique in its public and private partnership, given Town of Telluride and Telski coming together to really do this thing as a cohesive neighborhood plan. Inclusivity, making sure that we're getting all the voices at the table and really trying to capture, as part of this engagement effort, as much of the general public as we can. I'll just put a pointer out. There is a community feedback board printed out on the back. As you leave, please jot down your thoughts, comments. Again, we're trying to capture as much feedback from this meeting as possible. And last but not least, excellence and bringing extraordinary architecture and design to the process. Moving through, here's the original conceptual plan that we've come up with over the past few months. I'll just work my way from left to right on this page and walk through the plan. Starting on the left, you see the Lot L, Shandoka, existing parking lot, the existing drop-off in the Gallatin Goose bus stop there. And coming into the neighborhood, one of the things we heard was desire for safe connectivity to the lift base. So what we're proposing here is a pedestrian multi-use trail going in through the development. This would be snow melted and accessible, safe, all those good things. We would try to maintain the plaza space around Cimarron and all those commercial frontages, but we're really trying to integrate some energy at the base area. So what you see in building A and building B are more of that kind of lift base specific building programs. Yes.
Do you want me to hold my question till later or can
You
we?
can pause and
I was just wondering, I'm just looking, so that pedestrian access coming from the parking, it goes right by the trash area for Cimarron right there.
Yep.
What are you proposing for that?
well, we would still allow for traffic, trash collection, all of that good stuff to happen along this pathway.
Uh-huh.
And we put some planting, again, this currently this feels very back of house entry to
Yeah.
the lift. And
Yeah.
We're starting to explore ways of how do we make this a little bit friendlier, more inviting.
Uh-huh.
We put in some landscaping areas again to bring green into those spaces. We also would prefer to screen some of the trash infrastructure and kind of hide it from the view, but we understand that there are some utility aspects to that we need to maintain. So continuing on around the base area, we are proposing a lot of interior-exterior connectivity. You can think dining spaces, spill-out spaces, exterior plaza spaces, really creating a kind of a nexus at the base of the lift. We heard from the community that there's a desire for lawn space, a place to throw a frisbee with the dog, what have you. But we would propose that sort of program associated with the lift base. And then we're also looking at a community amenity as part of the hotel program. So building B is proposed to be a hotel, and I'll let CCY talk more about the architectural breakdown of buildings here in a little bit. But we're thinking there would be a pool amenity feature associated with that hotel building. This would be a second story. This kind of lighter beige is a little bit elevated from the plaza level. Within the core, again, we're trying to activate as much as possible seating areas, bench seating, bike infrastructure, again, to encourage multimodal connectivity. As well as we started to think, last March, we heard from the community, there's a desire for affordable places to eat, flexible spaces, things that are not so fixed, but can take on multiple different functions for different parts of the year. And so at the central plaza, we're hoping to achieve some of that energy. We're proposing some spots for food carts. You can imagine driving in through here, setting up a couple of carts and providing food to the community that way. Working over to the roundabout, we have a drop-off proposed kind of central to the development. And this would be hotel drop-off primarily, but you can imagine some secure drop-off happening here as well. And then working my way from building C through L is really where we're concentrating the affordable housing program. And architecturally, we'll get into kind of mass and scale of some of these buildings. But the main idea here is to create a central kind of urban commercial community hub, kind of stitching between building C and building H. And then we've also proposed kind of a community playground, and this would be a nature playground, as well as some garden spaces. We try to bring environmental stewardship into all our projects, and so thinking about pollinator gardens, wetland gardens, those kind of things that respond to the existing local ecologies on the site. And we've also got on the top and on the bottom of this image, you'll see some programmatic logos that also start to expand on some of the thinking and activation of some of these spaces. You see movie nights, you see fire pit locations, things of that nature. And also just to point out, a lot of this is showing kind of the top down level, but underneath this, a good portion of the park at the affordable housing parcel, there will be an underground parking garage to accommodate parking.
Underneath all of those buildings there?
Underneath buildings, primarily I, J, and K.
Yeah, actually, if you click forward one slide.
So this is currently Carhenge.
Yep.
That's underground, I, J, K.
Yes.
Okay.
That's level 0, so everything you're kind of seeing pop up where there's parking, that's sub-level.
Thank
0.
Including parking under the proposed hotel as well.
Yeah, which is B.
Which would be 2 separate parking structures.
This is a good segue. I'll hand it over to CCY.
Since we're on parking too, I was talking to Chad about this, and you know, that whole plaza area between, what is it, H and J, if that could all be added as parking, I think it would be a great addition.
Where is
Underneath that
that?
plaza.
So I'll show, what he was suggesting, you know, he's wondering why can't we add more parking here? And the people online, if you can move your cursor over that so they can see it.
Underneath.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is subterranean.
That was the question.
So I think some of the idea with the parking right now is it's not a full story below, it's about a half story. And part of the goal of that is to maintain a continuous linear park all the way through this scape here. So what's happening with the grades is, you know, this is lower, and then as you cross the road and you start to climb in the park space here, we get on top of kind of that lower level of parking. So if we push this forward, not to say that we couldn't do that, like, you know, getting as much parking on here is important. This plan, however, is really trying to prioritize a connection from east to west in the development so that it feels like it's one continuous parkscape between the housing, between the plaza spaces. And if we push parking out this way, then this edge suddenly becomes a wall scape or something like that. And they're now pretty separated. So that's just my initial, like, not to say that that's not a bad idea or something we couldn't explore, but that's why we haven't done that yet.
And just to step up, making it a little different, going from housing to commercial may be a nice transition.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great feedback.
Parking, anybody know the status of the parking 3-story?
The Lot L. The
Yes, Lot L.
Yep. So we thank you for that. Stand up. So
Oh, at a place.
can we go back to the bigger? Oh, man. What have I done? Yeah, so Lot L is right here. Lot L Shandoka parking lot. And you are 100% correct that there is a partnership in these two developments between the Carhenge Chair7 and Lot L. So we will be looking at the design in parallel. However, we really wanted to start this process first with Carhenge Chair7 and understand where this design and vision was going and how it is going to be balanced and work collaboratively with the Lot L development. So
Did Lot L ever get approved? I don't know its final process.
So nothing has been approved or in process for that. If you mean like the design of the three-story building, we aren't even there yet from a process point.
So
It's all conceptual.
There was a study done, right, to determine the
the-
amount of
Yep.
parking that could be facilitated there, but nothing has been like finalized as to like, and now the building will be
Yep.
like this, and this many spots will actually
So
be
part
there.
of the southwest area
Well, there's a lot
plan.
of meetings with all of that.
Yeah, so part of the southwest area plan, which,
Yeah.
like I mentioned, definitely was like the start of this visioning process, was really looking at the feasibility of this area, which included Lot L and what was feasible on that area, from how many parking spaces, how many affordable housing units, and all of those things. But I think in planning always, and I beat this dead horse, feasibility is very different than reality and execution. So from a feasibility standpoint, we did look at what was the potential of all those places.
Okay.
But as Ashley said, nothing has been just developed, designed, or anything.
But
from that
its
piece.
potential is still there.
But its potential is still there, and it is an aspect of this entire project.
Thank you.
Several years ago, I was involved in an effort to include a recreational center, a community rec center in the reconfiguration of this whole area. Have you considered that at all?
So a rec center is definitely on our town council goals and objectives. It's also on our regional, other municipalities, goals and objectives. So we are looking, I mean, just to touch on that piece for a rec center, looking for a regional location that we can collaborate on for a rec center. At this point, we have not determined that that would be the best use for this space, but we are exploring other areas within the region for that exact use.
Well, I mean, the kids lost the Voodoo Lounge to affordable housing. I think we gotta give them something back.
Yeah, and we do have the youth center, so I don't know if you're following that, but part of the Voodoo commercial space. That's our first stepping stone to, in that direction, while we keep looking for a more regional rec center as well. But I think, thank you for that feedback, that's a great point. All right.
We have one question.
Homer.
Yes, well, I'm concerned about buildings A and B and how they're going to affect the views that people who currently have places to live around Lift 7. How do you plan on mitigating that concern with others?
I think I might suggest that maybe we get through talking about the mass and scale, and then we circle back on I'm sure there's gonna be lots of feedback on height and views, judging on how our first meeting went this morning. But Homer, would it be all right if we kind of work through the presentation around mass and scale and then circle back on that?
If you can get back to my question, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not the only one with that comment, Homer, so it's already on our radar, and we'll definitely provide some good feedback on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so as far as buildings go, kind of their location and, plan, as Ross was mentioning, this right side here, towards the east is more of the housing location, and then towards the west is more of kind of the commercial hub around the lift. So this plan here is showing a lot of the lower level parking, but the basic strategy with entering the site from a vehicular circulation is to come through kind of the main entrance, and then almost immediately you're taking the car outside of what we're really hoping to emphasize is a new pedestrian oriented, favored neighborhood that is fairly free of cars. Like we said, this parking structure is partially subgrade, so it's depressed into the landscape. So from the exterior and from interior of the site, you're not really experiencing the number of cars that are actually going to be housed on this site. It's going to feel more like a walking pedestrian neighborhood on that kind of upper level, which is this one here. So on the ground level, on the right side, we've got the vast majority of this is housing, with the exception of the bottoms of buildings C and H, which starts to kind of bleed the commercial from the lift side to the residential side, and then all the way back into town, trying to kind of stitch that commercial fabric. So there's going to be reasons for people in town to come across the bridge and frequent any commercial spaces that we have just on the other side, to continue deeper into the site and go to the hotel restaurant, to go to the lift. There's kind of this sprinkling of new commercial program that's going to not only energize that specific housing development and what we're doing here, but also kind of interact and engage with the adjacent community as well. So yeah, this is just really trying to kind of invigorate this whole side of town.
Are there anchor tenants that have suggested they'd be interested in providing some of that drop?
We don't have any suggestions for that currently, and somebody stop me if I'm saying the wrong things, but I think right now it's like, well, what's possible here? What do we even want here? Is kind of the initial question. There's been discussions about like, would there be a coffee shop on the parkscape? Would one of these buildings actually be a daycare space? Like there's a whole litany of program ideas, and we would love to hear like what desires really would drive some of these spaces. I think that would help in sizing some of them as well. But yeah, nothing, too concrete at the moment. So you enter into the site, you've kind of abandoned the car, and then we've got levels of housing up above that parkscape level. And the way that, if you read into each one of these, you can kind of see which levels have what kind of housing and so on. But I'll give you the brief summary is towards the river. We're really trying to keep the mass and scale of the buildings on that edge at 2 stories and 3 stories, closer to the town scale and a very friendly pedestrian scale. That same scale bends the corner here with these 2 structures here. I think that's F and G. Yep.
Can you blow that up for us so that we can see?
Yeah, it's really hard to see.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is, neighboring to the development over on this side. So we're stepping down to that neighbor. We're stepping down to kind of the adjacent neighborhood here. And then the buildings get progressively taller in order to kind of build the scale towards the backdrop of the mountain. So it's following kind of this natural slope that's there. And then it's also basically providing like a lower scale screening of some of the larger structures that are over here. And we're trying to find that balanced sweet spot between the, demands of needing to provide increased affordable housing for the deficit that's, already in place in the community, but not, abandoning the local vernacular and the local scale of the fabric of Telluride that's here already. So it's sort of trying to balance those 2 needs, and we'd love to hear how we're doing on that. So
How tall are the big buildings?
so these are 4 here in the middle, and then these here would be like 4.5 stories. So there's the half story of parking underneath, and then 4 stories of housing over the top of that. Yeah, and then these are 2.5 here, and then 4 here.
And do you have a concept of how many units of housing you think might be in there?
Yeah, so for the most part, we've got building blocks that we're using to kind of test out the Southwest Area Plan's original kind of scope, but that plan was targeting, somewhere in the mid to was it 220 to 235 is what we're showing here. What we don't have determined right now is kind of the unit mix with the housing. So if they're all 1 bedrooms, it's going to be quite a bit more units. If it's all 3 bedrooms, it's going to be quite a few less units, but potentially more. So there's a lot of figuring out of the numbers, but we think kind of in that 220, 235 range currently. And I'm seeing lots of hands shooting up. I think you back there were first.
Yep, Ben Jackson. So all the purples, deep restricted housing.
Yes, sir.
I did some research. This is probably the most valuable piece of undeveloped real estate in ski country. And, so I'm assuming A and B is the hotel or, free market aspect of it. And we should really look at the purple area. And why does it all have to be deed restricted? I've wondered this on some of the town projects. Why can't the top floor, the top 2 floors be free market? It'd probably pay for half the building. But we need hotbeds too. I mean, where are all these people gonna work? That's a lot of deed restricted housing, ski in, ski out, and, fish in, fish out on the river. I mean, that's the cat's meow. I mean, you should think about mixing deed restricted with free market. I think it would work fine. They've done it in Aspen, they've done it in Bell. Take the top 2 floors, the top floor, and make it free market. It'll probably pay for half the building, and it'll give us some hotbeds, require that those go into the rental pool. But we need more hotbeds down here. We really do. And like I said, I mean, this doesn't exist. We're very lucky as a community to have this vacant lot, to have this, blank canvas, for lack of a better term. So we got to get this right. And deed restricting it in perpetuity, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And if we're going to deed restrict all of it, could we sunset it and have it relooked at in 30 years to where it's not forever, if it's all going to stay deed restricted? But I think a good medium is look at taking the top floor at least, if not the top 2, and making them free market. Mix it in.
So I'll address a couple of those comments quickly. It is not unknown here for us to do exactly that. So we have done a couple of our affordable housing projects where we have sold free market units to help with the financing. So that concept is something that we can definitely explore within this as well, and is not unknown to the town of Telluride. Also, you had one other point that I wanted to, for deed restriction. Deed restriction doesn't necessarily a forever thing. The town always does have the right to relook at deed restrictions and change them to better fit the needs of the community. So if there is a deed restriction on a unit, it doesn't mean that it's set that way for ever and ever and ever.
I was just wondering, and maybe we're not quite there yet, but has the town considered if they're gonna be rental units versus ownership?
So we haven't decided any of that. Again,
We're not there yet.
we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're so conceptual at this point. But again, we do have precedent to look at owner occupied versus rental units. There are benefits to both. There's more flexibility in future when it's a rental unit because you have more control. Oh, the town owns that unit and you have that control. When you sell it, you don't have that control as much anymore. So, we're balancing all of these points with that future vision as well, but we have to make this decision.
Thank you. I was just curious about the size. We talked about the stepping down and everything on the housing portion. What are the massive scale looking like on A and B?
That's her presentation.
Okay, we're gonna be-
That's a good segue because there is free market on that side. So buildings A and B, again, are the idea is that these are anchor the new base development and round out the edge of the proposed kind of commercial plaza space. Building B being primarily a hotel, what we've looked at is 60 to 80 keys. Subgrade parking and 4 stories above that right now, likely with some stepping back. All of what we're proposing is really conceptual. It will still have to go through HARC. It will still go through PNC. So this is just kind of conceptually, we've looked at 4 stories of hotel on building B. Building A is proposed as a 2-story building, so some ground level commercial with potentially a couple free market units on that building as well. So trying to step down the scale, Homer, to your previous question, step down the scale as we move west here and really keep the bulk of the mass and scale of the hotel further to the east and more associated with the density proposed on the housing parcel. And I'm going to pan over to level 1, where some other colors show up. So this is showing that, the purple shown in building A is proposed as some commercial space. And then the alternate colors in building B here that's showing what would be kind of lobby amenity spaces and really thinking of this as a, again, 60 to 80 key boutique hotel with a community service, a hotel, restaurant and F&B that is associated with this plaza does create that kind of off-right vitality at the base. So I think maybe we just power through the rest of the presentation before we go into questions.
Yeah.
We haven't forgot about you, Homer.
Sorry, there's a long lag here. Okay.
And just to wrap things up here, we have a few slides that show some imagery of what we're thinking. Again, we're trying to really just evoke the atmosphere, ideas of what this place could be. Again, we welcome feedback on any of this. So if you see something you really dislike or see something that you love, please let us know. But the idea that we'd have nature kind of really stitch this whole space together, whether it's pollinator gardens, nature play, water play, there's some lawn gathering spaces that I alluded to earlier associated with informal seating areas. There's a lot of these nooks that are starting to develop in between the buildings that we think are an opportunity for some of this public amenity space. This place is a little bit more quiet on the housing side, where you can maybe find a nook to read a book or something that's a little bit more passive versus the more active side, which is the area. Some images associated with activating the lift. We think, again, we always try to bring art sculpture into our projects, and there's a really strong kind of arts identity within Town and Telluride. How do we bring that into this space, play that up? Après scene, outdoor dining, or outdoor experiences. A place to roast marshmallows is always good. And I think we alluded to this a little bit, but there's this idea that elevated on the second story of the hotel, you get these really special views out to the surrounding mountains and probably propose a pool amenity zone there. And then some more park imagery associated with this. See that Aspen pet mall on the upper right there. This idea that there's kind of this energy within the streetscape, that these streets are spaces, they're not car streets, they're places for people, places to hang out, grab a drink, grab a bite to eat. We've also looked at food carts again, this idea of flexibility and how you bring things in that don't necessarily need to be permanent, but something that can be taken in and out. And engaging play and placemaking. This is a picture of Zephyr Plaza in Murray Park over on the right that we've done, but there's something special that we can play up with the ski and snowboard community. How do we start to integrate that into the furnishings? How do you make something special and unique to Telluride?
And from more of a planning and architectural standpoint, we haven't gotten into what these buildings look like yet. So this is more about really trying to speak to what's the vibe of this place when it's done 5, 6, 7 years down the road. We know these things take time. So on the hotel, thinking about how it can feel appropriate to the context of town, but really create some new exterior spaces, some operate areas, and really be a year-round amenity, not a seasonal amenity. So, how can it have a great plaza space that helps activate the park year-round? And moving to, this idea of, I think Chad spoke to this early on in our process, that the vision for Lift 7 long-term is how does this become not a new base area that's competing with Mountain Village or with the base of the gondola, but a new base area that is for town, that is for kind of this neighborhood and this community. And we've taken inspiration in the site planning and kind of organization of the buildings, breaking them down into smaller buildings, some of the subtle shifts and jogs from, maybe more European style planning in mountain communities where there is a little bit more density, but there are views between corridor, view corridors between buildings and activated spaces between the buildings. We think it's important that the vision for this project is about the spaces between the buildings, not so much about the buildings themselves. So how do we create great public spaces within the parkscape, but also great community spaces within the neighborhood that are more about the activation of, people moving in and out of their units and getting to know each other and having a space to sit down and read a book in the sun on a beautiful day. And then finally, just wanted to highlight that housing side a little bit more. Again, really focusing on the spaces between. And one concept that we've kind of started to overlay on this at a conceptual level is how is a lot of the circulation between the buildings exterior. So there is more of this kind of activation of spaces in between. It's not just all double loaded corridor buildings. There is more of an interaction with the community, and again, an emphasis on the pedestrian aspect of this property.
Front doors, walkways, stairways, balconies, things where people are seeing other people, and that sense of neighborhood community is really fostered.
And then just very conceptually put together some sketches that start to speak to, what might it feel like driving across the current Carhenge Bridge in its new, updated, extremely pedestrian friendly and multimodal version. And really, this being the 2.5 scale building against the river and the taller buildings stepping back, but trying to really highlight that more commercial zone and creating that corridor of community serving commercial that starts to connect the Pacific Avenue area into this zone and into that commercial plaza, hopefully bringing additional economic vitality to the existing commercial tenants at Cimarron Lodge. And then finally, just gonna end on a little bit of a zoom out, an aerial that again looks at how does this proposed development and density really fit into the larger context of this neighborhood. This building here being the new hotel building, the step down second 2-story area adjacent to the lift. This is the addition to the Cimarron building here, and then the housing in the distance here. Again, very conceptual. It's not really about what these buildings look like quite yet. We're more interested in the feedback on the neighborhood, the ideas of the planning, and the kind of the mass and scale and the things that we've really focused on within this presentation. I think with that, I go back to the site plan. It's like a useful visual aid.
I'd love to start with Homer's question, as we kind of go through questions. So, Homer, you mentioned, again, the mass and scale of some of the buildings and the view corridors. I just want to first, again, start off that this is still, we're just have boxes on a map at this point. At our next renderings, we'll kind of help show some of those view corridors and how they are impacting the other buildings. We do want to be conscious of kind of that impact to the community that is surrounding that area. I think it's also important to understand that we do have some lower graded buildings. So while it says 4 stories, that's not just at that, piece of land. We are going to look to dig that in as much as possible. So I can't really speak to exactly the impact of the massive scale at this point, but we will move forward in that process and keep that consideration in mind, as we have heard from a lot of the members of that community of that concern as well. So I know that was kind of a vague answer, but that's kind of where we are in the process.
Ask about the lift.
So what is lift 7 going to be upgraded to handle the extra traffic?
Come on, Chad, what do you got?
Your turn, Chad.
We were thinking about moving chair 8 over there. See if that, no, I'm kidding. No, yeah, that would be upgraded as part of this plan. And I think the other thing, just so everybody's clear on this, the current lift 7 location is not where this pink thing is. It's closer to where the pool is today. And we're gonna, the next presentation that we have, we're gonna kind of show that ghosted so everybody can see where it's moving from and to. But the chairlift actually moves up towards the mountain a little bit to accommodate the hotel. And that has an impact on queuing for the lift. That has an impact on the Telluride Trail. And we're aware of all that and we need to plan for all of that. And these buildings may have to be adjusted for that final plan, but we're keenly aware that we have to pay attention to all of that as part of this.
And it will be upgraded.
And it will be upgraded. Did I not say that?
You did not say
I did
that.
not say that. Yeah.
I think the intention
Being
of
replaced.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we'll put some, no, we're gonna do more than paint it. Yeah, we'll replace it. Right, Kenny? We're gonna
Try
replace it.
painting it. didn't help.
Yeah, it didn't help. No, it'll be replaced as part of this.
I think the idea with the existing ski runs that are there now is there might be some slight adjustments to either where they're located, just oriented around buildings, or buildings are gonna shift like Chad said, but the idea is that we're keeping every single one of those that has access down that way. Now, it might look a little different in the future, but it should still be the same ski level for each one of those runs.
You're talking about a high-speed detachable lift.
Well, I mean, that's an option. I don't know that we haven't finalized what will go there. It may depend on exactly what we end up with as a development here. But as far as how many people will be serviced by that lift, that would be hard to get that many people there to justify needing the high-speed detachable quad. But still open for discussion.
And I'm just curious if anybody knows, Zoe, what is the height? I'm just thinking about like surrounding buildings.
Yeah, so
I know that, like the Element 52, it's big and tall
it's
and
4 stories. 5 stories.
It's 5,
okay.
right?
I was gonna say 5 stories. I think at a place is 4 stories. 4 stories is not in context with the neighborhood. But we will continue to analyze that a little bit more deeply as we move forward. But I think the point you're making is that totally out of context with the neighborhood? That at this point, we don't feel
It doesn't-
it is to explore that.
yeah, I think that just reminding people that in this area, those larger buildings already do exist.
Yep.
Specifically with like something like an Element 52, that I don't think that, while yes, we're going from a dirt lot to buildings, it's gonna be shocking no matter how you look at it,
Yep.
that there is this density and these larger buildings in this area. And I appreciate that the idea of having the smaller setback or the lower setbacks on, or the lower profiles on like the river areas that are closer to like the more residential, and then mirroring the way that the increased heights are happening with the other buildings, I think will make sense. And I think it's a good strategy for this.
Yeah, I wanted to find out if anybody has considered working with the river. It's basically channelized from Davis to Mahoney and past to Entrada, excuse me. And we've worked downstream very hard, spent some money to get more sinuosity and more health in that river system. We have an opportunity here potentially to do that, where we have new buildings shown adding some sinuosity to the river would probably help a lot in conjunction with replacing Mahoney Bridge, which has accelerated due to the nice storms we had earlier this year. But it could create some more park space and work a little bit better to integrate this development with the rest of the river and that park space. So I just wanted to put that on the table.
Thank you. Really great feedback. Thank you. All right. Any other questions in the room? Kathy?
I have one comments and questions.
Perfect.
First, I'd like to remind everybody that in the 1970s, this was the base area, this and the day lodge. There was no mountain village. There was no gondola lift aids. So I don't like hearing we're going to make it a base area. Let's not forget that it was the base area. And if you don't know this stuff, there's plenty of people in this room around this town that can tell you this stuff. You just need to talk to us. Okay. I want the #1 overriding core value, and I'll probably be saying this for about every project that comes up in the future, to be that it will be measured against our climate action plan in every aspect. And wherever it does not comply with our climate action plan, it'll be modified to comply. So that should be the number one overriding core value. I don't want anybody after this meeting telling me, oh, of course, we're gonna consider the climate action plan. This is the number one measure. And I'll be saying this for every single thing. Parking. Right now, we need every parking space we can get in this town. We still won't have enough, especially with our long vehicles, and then they get longer with those bike racks, and they can't get in and out of parking lots or parking garages. But that's gonna change, so I kind of want to plan, this might be more relevant for Lot L, where obviously the aggregate parking from the Lift 7 project and Lot L have to meet a certain total for our obligations to the federal government and other things. But what's gonna happen when we don't need so much parking? I wanna have a plan of how this space is gonna get reused. And I'm talking in the future, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. But I don't want it to say, oh, now we have to tear this building down because we don't need parking. I want us to have a reuse when we get to shrink our parking needs. Then I want us to decide for EV charging that is safe and that won't get ripped out when it's 3 years old. And whether it means having extra water storage for firefighting with electric batteries or however you do that, because I have not studied that. I went through fire training when it was pre-EVs 50 years ago. I want to know that we've got enough EV stuff and it's going to be there forever and it's going to be fast, not just this slow stuff. Then this is where I would disagree with some of my longtime friends here. We stopped using hotel beds as a PUD incentive here a little while ago. So yes, I think we probably do need hotel beds, but I want to know for this project, I think we need a community-wide discussion, not just for Lift 7, but for everywhere. How much do we need hotel beds? How should they be mitigating? Because sometimes I think they cost the community more than they give the community. And even more so, I think we need a special town-wide discussion for all future public and private projects if we need free market condos, because that's what I really think costs the community without giving back. So rather than just say, oh, this is XYZ free market, this is, 60, whatever, 80 beds or keys of a hotel, we need to see what we need in our entire community and see how much of that should be allocated here, not just plunk it down here when maybe it really belongs someplace else that's better for our community, or maybe we're better off without it. Then my last thing, I want to see childcare here, but I always get really nervous when childcare is really close to a river or a pond. Water hazards are very attractive to children, and I do not want to have any more drownings in our community.
Thank you for all of those great comments. I appreciate that. All right, anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, I'll go in the room and we'll head to that.
Okay, George Harvey, I've lived on Mahoney for 34 years. It's obviously going to be the artery for people coming to all of this. It's always been that way. It's kind of a mess. So it's important, I think, not just for the Bachman Village community, but for your overall planning, how that traffic gets down that street safely, impacts the neighborhood. The drainage on Mahoney has never worked properly, ever. Creates a lot of safety issues for icing and melting. And I've mentioned before in this meeting, the large number of children that use that to get to school. It's very unsafe. We're lucky nothing's happened yet. And so that's just the general, that's a really challenging piece that needs to be eventually. You tell us how you think you can fix it. I think it's going to be expensive, unfortunately, and the bridge that goes with that. The last thing is, unless I just missed it, the first notice I saw in this meeting was yesterday.
Well, we've had other notices, but I'll get with my communications manager and check on that timeline.
All right. Well, I'm hoping that maybe I missed it. It's easy,
I've
so busy.
at least received two, So,
When you say received, how do you receive them?
email.
I didn't get anything by email, and I
So
couldn't
if you
all
want
of
to give
these.
me your email, I'll make sure that it is.
But I'm just
on
one person on Buckman Village. All of those people should be easy to.
I will send you how to sign up, and if you want to spread that to your contacts, and we'll keep doing that, for sure.
I can, no, I notified 4 people in my building, but I don't have any access to 100 other
We'll
people.
strategize offline a little bit more.
But they should know about this.
Well, yeah,
And-
and our,
I found out about it yesterday too.
you did, okay.
I'd say at least a week.
I think I
Well,
will too.
Okay, I'll talk to my communications manager on that, but our goal, communication is very important to us, and to have a long runway in that as well is important too. So we'll work on that strategy a little bit more. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
I got notified a few days ago through the HOA. They sent out to our distribution and Lulu, so that worked pretty well.
Which
Good.
HOA was that?
Lulu City.
So Angela, I had put together an email sending out to the adjacent HOAs, and I think some of those HOAs have shared it with other HOAs in the general area, but that went out last week.
And we have a contact list of HOA manager email system that we've got sent to as well, but I don't know how, that always changes, so. I think we'll try to
Mayor
keep
lives
track.
next door.
Yeah, we'll try to keep that updated. So for the Mahoney piece, I just want everyone to understand that while we're talking specifically about this project, there are so many other pieces that need to work for this to work. Mahoney, is definitely one of them, and we're looking at those improvements as well, so.
Just one more, addition to the site, planning here. You have a multi-use path shown going through the core. And I'm not so sure it's more as multi-use as it is pedestrian. I don't see riding a bike through there at all, if we're gonna get the kind of people and population you want in there. So I just want to make sure that we don't lose the river trail. It has to be, somewhat relocated. That's still one of the core amenities along that area. Also, a commute. So it needs to still be there. It's not an either or. They need to put both work in.
100%. No contemplation of getting rid of the river trail, more creating, how do we make the park spaces kind of connect and let this community park influence through that
I
kind of
think
connectivity.
the planning strategy for the town as well as for the Telski group is to look more at the strip between on the south side of Pacific as part of park spaces for this entire neighborhood. We've got lots of folks who are even here, myself included, who live in this area. It's not just accommodations, it's a lot of locals. And we need neighborhoods, we need places to go as well, off season as well. And we need amenities. We don't have a big park to go to. Thank goodness we have one in town, but we need to think about those spaces. Maybe they're on the roofs of buildings instead of on the ground plan, because we don't have the area in which to work. That was one of the comments I made about Chandoka. Lot L was to look at the roofs of those spaces as usable for different kinds of activities, potentially around. Vegetable gardens, all kinds of things that when we have the sunlight we can use, transition to other things that make it a true neighborhood, true living space, not just for people to come and go. I think we need that balance, especially in this neighborhood. So heavily condo, STR oriented, but we also have a great blend right now. And I think that should be a goal.
Thank you, Angela. Great feedback. I'm gonna go just online, and I know I got a couple more in the room, but I'll start with Michael.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. First off, it's we're headed in a good direction. This is probably the type of concept that this property requires or deserves. But at the same time, I'm still wondering about the initial conditions as well as the benefits. The initial conditions are primarily that this site was always considered wetlands, and I haven't heard the word mentioned during the discussion. And the
Yeah.
wetlands
With the
were,
wetlands.
that is the wetlands right there. That's the extent of the wetlands that you've identified. And you look, it looks like you created a park with it, or what?
Yep, that's correct. We would preserve the existing well
As a park?
as part of the park. Yeah, as part of the park sequence.
So the wetlands would remain wetland as part of the park, so they are intact. They're not like, filled in to become a park, because you need to have the wetlands remain intact.
Yeah, and the grading associated with the wetlands is actually dictating how we tie this whole property together.
Okay,
Correct.
that's an interesting concept. The hotel. The hotel is located on property that was always designated as either open space or as employee housing. This is a change of use. I'm wondering how we get from the existing zoning to the zoning that's proposed on this property, especially going from open space to hotel.
Great question, Michael. So for that, you are 100% correct. There will be a process involved to do so. We'll work through that internally. There are a handful of different avenues to consider in that piece, but we do understand that that is part of the next step in this process, and to move it forward is to address that concern.
Yeah, I would have thought that was the first step, but okay. And to reinforce what Kathy was saying, there is a climate action program that the town is pretty finds pretty important, and there really wasn't that much that was addressed in the presentation. But at the same time, I think that there's a potential here that maybe has not been suggested, and that's namely closest to the mountain. The height of the buildings closest to the mountain could probably even be larger. The impact to the views and to the surrounding area would be minimized most in that location. So it's too small to be able to read, but the two buildings that are those two there could even be larger and accommodate even more free market or deed restricted, but is one of the places where I think the town, one of the few places in the town that can accommodate even taller buildings, and that should be considered, because we are trying to figure out where to put as many people in town as possible. The traffic situation was treated a little bit lightly, I thought, because there's a major traffic problem that has always existed ever since the town created the bottleneck, which is known as Pacific. The lift is kind of important. You guys kind of gave short shrift to the whole lift situation, and according to TSG, it sounds like the lift is somewhat contingent upon what bonuses they receive as a result of building the hotel. While I understand that, it does seem to me like it is not really taking the important place that it can and should serve in the community. Lift 7 is crucial to that entire side of town. And despite Howard's comments about we needing hotbeds, there are lots of hotbeds. And it has been mentioned that there are lots of locals that are living there, and we all use Lift 7. That's our access point. It's very inconvenient to have to go to the gondola, believe it or not. And if Lift 7 was more convenient, and there was a way to figure out how to improve that lift, even the location at the top could be repositioned slightly. It could, in fact, as Kathy was mentioning, reestablish itself as an alternate base for the town and for the ski area, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You are all but creating it there. It's if we're looking for development, and we want that development to be as convenient a place as possible, that's probably not a bad way to accomplish it, and not treat Lift 7 as an alternate or an oversight. It is probably crucial to the workings of the entire town, and would prevent a lot of the traffic to have to move through town as much as it does now. Otherwise, I think you guys are on the right path, and there certainly is a long process that probably can be undertaken successfully as long as we keep the communications open. The website, as it was presented, even in the notice that you all set out, did not even go to the right meeting. And I
That was updated. I thank you for that. Someone did tell me, and it has been updated, but I have that note as well. Thank you.
Yes, that was me. And it when I went again to get on for this, I still got directed to the wrong place, and I had to go directly to that email that you sent, which had the right link to it. This is very important that we have easy communications, and we all get to participate in a way that makes it feel as if our input is welcome. That kind of makes it feel like you really weren't that serious about getting public input. But nonetheless, the points that are being made are good ones, and hopefully we can move this process along to the benefit of the entire community.
Thank you for all those comments, Michael. Really appreciate it. And we do take public engagement very seriously. So we appreciate everyone being here despite the difficulties, and look forward to participation in the future. All right, I'm gonna go to Stacy. Stacy?
Her hand turned a different color.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yeah.
In this scenario, is Pacific Street two ways, or is it still one way?
Great question, Stacy. Currently, right now, we're still envisioning Pacific to be one way. We are looking for improving multimodal traffic, but from vehicle traffic, it will still be one way.
Okay, so, the concerns George shared about Mahoney, I share about Tomboy Street, because it looks like people would be taking Tomboy Street to get, to cross over if they don't come down Mahoney. And, at least, on Mahoney, there's a roundabout. It's really hard to take a left-hand turn onto Main Street now from Tomboy Street. So, when people are leaving, I think that's something that needs to be considered, either that you make Pacific two ways, or I don't know if you put a roundabout at Tomboy Street and Main Street. But like I said, it's already really hard to take a left from Tomboy Street and to Main Street. And then I would just, I'm sorry. So yeah, you see what I'm saying right there, right?
Yeah. Great feedback, Stacy.
And then I just wanted to reiterate, I like that, what someone there mentioned, use of roof space. I think that is a really good consideration. I agree with, Michael, that, you could definitely make the buildings closer to the mountain, higher, because, we're always talking about, how to increase density to help affordable housing. And one way to increase density is to increase the height of the buildings closer to the mountains. That's pretty much it. My main concern is, that traffic right now.
Great, thank you, Stacy.
Just one
Yeah.
comment about the height of the buildings, like I have no problem with the idea of kind of increasing the height of those. Can you guys hear me okay? Currently, the heights of the buildings now all fit inside of the land use code, and adding an additional would push us above that. So one of the initial targets was to try and make this as conforming to the current Telluride land use code as is, and not ask for exceptions or anything like that for the town's affordable housing projects. So that's just one, not to say it's not a good idea, just wanted to put that in the mix.
I understand that. I'm just saying that, when you're talking about it, housing emergencies because of affordable housing, the time to ask for an exception to the land use code would be now. This would be kind of the time and the place.
Great, thank you, Stacy. All right, I'm gonna go with Trisha.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, so this is Trisha Maxon. I'm actually George's neighbor, George Harvey. And I just want to kind of echo what everyone else has been said about Mahoney with the development of Shandoka and this, which is great work, by the way. So thank you for presenting this. I'm really concerned about the traffic pattern. It's scary right now. And when you add all the density there, I don't think Mahoney can handle it. Certainly the road shakes now. But I'm more concerned about the safety, and I watch it every morning because my unit at Owl Meadows overlooks Mahoney, and I watch the kids going up and down the sidewalk and cars pulling out of Mahoney or down by Lulu. And we're lucky nobody's been hit by a car. And I just want the town to really consider the traffic. You can't run all this density one way down Mahoney and one way down Pacific. It's going to be a nightmare, I believe, because it kind of already is. So that's my ask with all of this, is to really think about that traffic pattern.
Thank you, Trisha. I do want to take a quick step back. I'm not saying that this completes the need for more traffic studies, but when we did the swap plan feasibility study, a traffic study was a part of that to understand how the traffic flow can support such density levels. So there's a lot more that needs to go into it, but no, we do have a first stepping stone into looking into that. So thank you, Trisha, for bringing that up. I'll keep going with the Trishas, and Trish, if you want to go next.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I'm Trish Schilling. I live in Double Diamond full-time and owner there. I understand that this is conceptual and it's a little early maybe to even mention this, but I'm trying to figure out, besides the hotel, what the front and backs of the buildings are. I'm thinking about everything from cockroaches to bears and restaurant. Where are those dumpsters going? We right now, I'm on the side that abuts the easement for the Cimarron Lodge. And we have garbage and yes, right there. We have garbage and recycling that comes through there, as well as trucks coming in and out, and deliveries to what is Telski's rental, for example, in the winter. Every day there's a garbage truck backing in there. So I'm wondering, with all of this new density, if as you maybe next time you can show us like, where are all of those dumpsters going? Where is, you know, for building A, building B, all of the other buildings? How are trucks getting in and out? Besides just the people who are living or staying there, you know, how is the infrastructure going to work? It'd be nice to have an overlay of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great insight. As we keep moving through this visioning process and more definement, those are definitely pieces that will come up for us to review collectively. So
I
Yeah,
think even at a high level, just we've started having
Yeah.
some of those conversations.
of course,
We
yeah,
don't have answers yet, but you know, we know that part of that subgrade parking area on the hotel will need to be back of house spaces and support spaces. And there's actually great precedent in town of having some of those service and support spaces under some of these buildings. So I think we can be really strategic, recognizing that particularly buildings A and B kind of have they have front sides on all sides because of the way they sit.
Yeah.
So we'll need to be very thoughtful with that service discussion.
right. When you're asking neighbors to give up their view for increased density, it's one thing to see the facade of a building, maybe an amenity out your window. It's another thing to see a row of dumpsters. So it's just a
Yeah, heard.
thanks, Trish. All right, I'm gonna go with Ryan, and then we'll go back to the room if there's anyone else in the room.
Hi, Ryan Vitt. I'm Cimarron 46. And my biggest concern is with the locations of building A and building B. For one, building B looks like it's actually built all the way up to O'Reilly's and also eliminating any access from Telluride Trail. I know these are just, very preliminary conceptual, but if that's going to move away, so still allowing some type of skier run out, that's going to move towards Cimarron or move back towards Carhenge, which is fine. But I think it's just creating an issue with, these plans they look great. Looks like you have a nice, landscape area in between Cimarron and building B, but that building is looks like it's directly up against the very bottom of, if you look at the topography of all the dotted lines there, that looks like it's like you would be skiing down right into a 4-story building. Is that right?
So what's shown is existing topography on it. No, it hasn't been changed. So as a part of this with the buildings proposed, as Chad mentioned, there's a lot of detail around building B and building J and the ski circulation, and that it may be that some of that evolves, that Telluride Trail gets lifted up, that maybe we've even talked about, could you ski under a piece of building B and have it bridge over? So I think that while it's not perfectly figured out at this time, the ski circulation long-term is going to be really critical, both the skier circulation and the queuing and kind of pedestrian area, how it ties into the lift and the lift line. So we've definitely got it on our radar, but we don't have firm answers for that at this time.
Yeah, and the only other question I had in addition to that was, I understand and the need for affordable housing, but the building A and B, which is going to be hotel, this end of town already has such a large concentration of hotbeds. If you think about Viking Lodge, Mountainside Inn, Cimarron, Etta Place 1, Etta Place 2, Double Diamond, Owl Meadows, Viking Lodge. There's so many beds already, and there's only a 2-person lift. And it sounds like Telski's saying, well, maybe we'll add a 3-person. It just doesn't seem like a good trade-off to say, maybe you'll get an access, maybe you won't. And then even if you did get a quad, or if you kept it a triple, kept it a double, it's hard to justify losing what's currently open space, knowing that you're going to have all these additional rooms on Carhenge, all this additional development on Shindoka. It seems like the ask is, can we not only develop Carhenge and Shindoka, but then also develop the open space and build a hotel? What's currently zoned open space, let's make that lot or accommodation zoning as well. So I guess that's the concern.
So much, Brian. All right, we'll go with Steve, and then if anyone else has comments in the back row.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you. First, thank you very much for putting this together. I think it's very useful. And this has been very interesting to me to listen to this. let me just touch on a couple things. I would second all the comments about traffic and pedestrian problems with Mahoney and Pacific. So we're up on Smuggler Avenue off Mahoney. And, it really is a problem, and we're gonna put a lot more vehicles through here. And so I would think real hard about where are the crosswalks gonna be? How are pedestrians just gonna move around this area to and from the lift? So second comment then, in terms of, I think it's great that we're trying to put a large number of units here, especially the affordable housing, and trying to at least help alleviate that problem for the town. I really resonated with the comments about keeping the river trail and thinking real hard about outside space, including the wetlands, that kind of thing. My comment there is if we put a couple hundred units in, we're gonna add, 100, 150 dogs here. And we've got to think a little bit about the impact to the river trail, probably especially going to the west. But that's really going to change the character of things in terms of just being able to walk around and enjoy the river trail and things like that. And then my third comment is just, as I said, I really like the fact that we're trying to do these things, but my concern is just, are we trying to cram too much into a small space? And, will we become overwhelmed a little bit with all kinds of small things trying to go on? For example, preserving the wetlands really is important, but we probably need some spaces around that. So I just throw that out as something to try to remember. Let's not try to do too much in one space. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate it. Is there any additional comments? Everyone?
Well, not to beat a dead horse, but I've lived in Telluride for 31 years, and most of that time I've been involved in one effort or another to build a rec center. And I think it's just insane that that's not being considered here, because it's a community amenity, and none of the community amenities that you talked about are anything I would use. And one thing that a community rec center does that none of those do is that you have a 14-year-old kid interacting in a fun and playful way with a 84-year-old member of our community, as well as meeting visitors and locals and all ages. That's something that a community rec center would bring to the neighborhood that isn't there. There's no reason for me to go there except to get on Left 7.
Appreciate that feedback. I understand the value and the need for a rec center, for sure.
Two quick comments. By the way, I'm Bill McDermott. I live in Lulu. One is aesthetics. Don't make this look like Winter Park. I know you're describing, photos from image stock, and I get it, but I keep hearing about how the town of Telluride is unique, the character, the aesthetic, the vibe. And it is, and it's not Winter Park. It's not Frisco. It's not suburban America. And the images that you're using it's just another park in another suburb. So I would encourage you to be creative with the aesthetic and look, even down by the gondola, the rusty corrugated steel and the old trestle, that's the Telluride vibe. So there's an opportunity to make it look like the town of Telluride rather than Winter Park. On an operational basis, one thing jumps out at me, also parking on Mahoney every day. When this construction project happens, it's going to require so much staging. And so, please, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, where the trucks live there during the project, not, in and out, in and out. Those are my two. Thank you.
Okay,
Somebody brought up about the dumpsters, and that was a really good point. The Bears know where every dumpster is in Buckland Village. And we're so nice that, a lot of us are longtime friends and neighbors, but they're pretty active. And that being the case is whatever your design and I realize there's a whole lot of properties already built, but maybe if you give a little thought about how to make those safer for people not to be around. The last thing is, I wonder if there's an opportunity at all to work with the Valley Floor entity, because we that live down there, love the amenity of walking, hiking, snowshoeing in the winter. Those are all, right there. I don't know if there's a way that's appropriate, I want to use that word, that those two entities, this and that entity in the valley floor, can find some common ground.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Alexander. Online, yep.
This is Andy Alexander. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
sorry, Andy. Yep.
Sure. Hi. So I'm looking at the height and scale of this and the traffic impacts and everything else. Just as you guys are presenting it, it's this project. And I'm wondering if we can overlap the Shandoka project with this to look at the overall impact because it's more than double. I mean, is that part of a study that you guys have done to
Yeah.
really
So,
look
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Andy. We touched on this a little bit earlier. So I'll answer that in two parts. You talked about, was it part of the feasibility? Yes, it was part of the Southwest Area Plan feasibility, to look at both, the town's affordable housing unit aspect and the Lot L Shandoka impact. And the traffic study was looking at those pieces. As we are going forward in this process, we very much do understand that they impact each other and that they need to work off each other as well. So while we have started the Chair7 Carhenge process now, because we feel like there's a lot more community feedback we want to get, and then understanding that, how it's going to play into the Lot L piece. But we're going to be starting that process pretty soon as well, so that we can move these things together in a parallel direction and have strategic planning around both of them.
in the staging of the construction, because if it's at the same time, it's gonna
Yep.
be.
Exactly, yep.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, feedback? It's a two-way conversation, so your feedback is so valuable and we really appreciate it. Great.
Kind of adding on to this gentleman's comment about the Telluride vibe, I really see the Telluride vibe as pedestrian. And yeah, there's the car thing. If we keep making things focused on cars, it is going to be a nightmare on Mahoney and Pacific and everywhere else. And I just would really encourage this to be a pedestrian emphasized development, which I think is the direction you're going with this. I'm hoping someday we have an intercept lot at Lawson and everyone just comes in on public transit. But until that happens, we have to accommodate everything. I just think making it much easier and more enjoyable to walk or bike is really key. And I think that segues into what Kathy was saying about making this a green development.
Thank you. And we, of course, are looking regionally and still working on the intercept lot pieces as well, because yes, we understand that's a priority for the community in the long run. There's just so many reasons to that too. So
I would add one thing regarding Kathy, your comments on the climate action plan, the people that back up that. While we haven't had really specific discussions about the opportunities here, I think a project of this scale in a public-private partnership, there is a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of things that are going to happen at a similar time between Lot L and this property to think maybe not about solving it at a building level and engineering our way out of that design, but what are the opportunities to think, what's the big idea here to address the climate action plan while still holding at the same time critical safety and snow melt and skier circulation and those things, because those are really hard things to balance. Because you hear snow melt and you think carbon and burning carbon. And I think that there's got to be a really large kind of conversation about what's the opportunity, because it's not going to be PV, because we all know there's not that much sun on the site. So I think that's very much at the forefront, even though it hasn't been kind of a focus as of yet. I think there's great opportunity here.
As a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and also our college.
I was gonna say, Kathy.
I have never seen a project come forward that really presents how they comply to the climate, each part of our climate action plan. And I do understand that sometimes snow belt is the best solution. I'm not, as an old lady, I like walking on snow melted sidewalks. I find that horrifying, but I know that that's good, but I've never seen a comprehensive thing coming in and telling us. And maybe I'll be going to town council soon and asking that become a requirement for every single new front door in Telluride, let alone a project of this scale. Yeah, but I mean, you know, and I really felt it. Last time everyone's like, oh, of course, and it's like, I never see it at either board. I never see that presentation. And I'm going to be asking for it.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
All right, we go back online to Michael.
Thank you for mentioning the intercept parking. That was always the original idea. Pedestrianization of the entire community, but certainly this part of town would go a long ways to making a statement that Telluride really does care about the environment and really wants to do something special. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And Trish.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I totally agree with the pedestrian nature of Telluride versus a lot of other ski towns where you can't even really walk across a street, let alone along a street on a sidewalk, because the traffic is so bad. So we really have something special. The Lot L, the development and the planning, I've been to meetings for that. And I think that it was still something like 900 parking spots. And if you think every car has a couple people in it, perhaps, or more, if they're coming, you know, for something like, you know, recreational, like skiing, perhaps that lot could be leveraged for some of the hotbeds that are being planned, where the hotel has valet and they, you know, bringing the cars over there, or perhaps the people are parking there and you know, wheeling themselves and their wheelie bags over to the hotel. Just a thought, because, you know, we're talking about, hey, how big can the chairlift be? Because how many people are going to be there? Well, maybe it is a 2-person chair, but maybe it's, you know, run more consistently and it goes a little bit faster. And maybe we can leverage that Lot L at the same time and consider that as part of the parking amenity for this new development proposal.
Thank you, Trish.
Zoe,
Yes.
you got a couple people.
Oh, I gotta turn around.
Sorry. I'm just gonna, because I'm just gonna throw, I don't wanna say a fly in the ointment, but I'm just gonna make a suggestion. Maybe I have no idea if this is even feasible. This might be insane. But
Good way to start out.
it's not that crazy. I appreciate what everyone's saying about like the pedestrian nature of this area and wanting to keep it like as pedestrian as possible, especially because I think that that is the desired intention for Telluride going forward. If we have subterranean parking, is there any reason why, instead of having, because I understand there's like that roundabout with the entrance that's going down to the parking for the hotel, in the like, you know, desire to, Telluride is different, Telluride is funky, you know, you might have to get a little mud on your boots kind of thing. If the parking access for the hotel was connected to the overall parking down below, so the cars literally would just come across the bridge and go down below, so that there wasn't really this like alternate road going through the center of it. And then I think then that would help maybe with some concerns about the mitigation of the wetlands as well, because that it kind of is bisecting that wetlands area. And then that would open up that entire space then to be additional green space or additional whatever area, like event lawn, I don't know, something really cool there between the B and H building. If all of the traffic, once it came across the bridge, just got subterranean, and then there were wayfinding signs to say visitor hotel this way and everyone else park here. Just an idea to think about if we really
Yeah.
are looking to embrace it.
Maybe, so you weren't the first person. to
Okay,
say
great.
something like
It's
that,
not the
so that's
craziest
really
thing ever.
crazy. Yeah, so subterranean pedestrian walkways and subterranean parking has been offered up by others. I think we'll definitely look at that. I think it's just from a feasibility standpoint, from construction or a financial facility, feasibility standpoint, but definitely something to consider and look into, from those aspects.
Can I piggyback on that?
Piggyback.
If we're eliminating a substantial amount of parking, can we remember that this is where the commuters come in and park, ski patrollers, lift offs?
Yeah.
You need like 100 parking spots.
Yeah.
How many are we reducing? How
So
many are you-
because of the partnership with the Lot L Shandoka development, we're not losing any parking. So, and from our FTA grant that we have, we are obligated to not lose parking. So you can feel encouraged that from a commuter transient parking aspect, that will be maintained, while it might not be on the Carhenge site, it will be potentially at the neighboring Lot L Shandoka site.
So are you gonna provide more space in Shandoka?
Correct, so it'll be a multi-level,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that happening sooner or in like the same time as this, synchronized with this?
I'm only laughing because this will be the third time that I've said this,
Oh,
but
sorry.
no, so it's great. I mean, I'm obviously not being clear enough. So we definitely will be looking at these two projects in parallel. So Lot L Shandoka, which is the parking structure, it will be most likely a multi-level parking structure with other community benefit elements like affordable housing, a childcare center, lots of other things like that.
Rooftop garden.
Rec center, I'll just throw that in there, why not? Garden, whatever you guys wanna throw on there, but, we'll be looking at those in parallel for sure, because our obligation for that parking needs to be maintained. So they will be working together.
And just to put a finer point on it, the current Carhenge lot, plus or minus, has 300 stalls, I believe. Shandoka currently has Lot L 300 stalls, so that's 600 total. So when this one goes away, if 600 goes on Lot L and Shandoka, you're kind of even. We haven't changed anything. Shandoka can support up to 900, even though that may not happen. So there's room to grow it a little bit. And the development that's being planned here essentially parks itself. So that's just big picture on what the plan is for the parking currently, and that can all change. That's just kind of the current.
And I'll just add quickly that what Chad is referring to again comes from that SWAP feasibility study. So feasibility wise, could do 900 spaces, but in my world, feasibility, so it's not a guaranteed 900 spaces. So go out to the public and be like, they're building 900 parking spaces there, like that happens.
That has not been determined.
Yeah. I'll go with you then.
Yeah, Carrie Connick, and this is up there with Ashley's crazy idea.
The safe space.
I'm like, free draw it all.
So, after we get the tunnels built for all the roads.
Turning into Disneyland at this point, so.
So it's always baffled me from a transportation planning standpoint that we have this great gondola that links two towns, but it's not aligned with where the parking is in town. There's like a disconnect. And so if this is gonna be a big density hub where everybody parks, does it make sense to have a little gondola action on that links to the gondola? So that you're aligning your public, yeah. It's just thinking forward when we get rid of all the cars, that people are gonna need a way from where they park to the other main density hubs.
I think it's great.
That would be goose. That was gonna be my comment was that we need, we have multi-modes here. We're talking about pedestrian, which is great. We're talking about bicycles, maybe. We haven't talked about that. We need a full bicycle plan here, where to park them.
We're also
use
looking into
them.
e-bike charging as well. that kind of
Whatever,
situation.
yeah. We're talking about intercepting the cars if they arrive, or at least charging them once they're here. But we haven't talked about transit, and you need a transit plan. And I live at Viking. I watch people deliberately bypass this lift to get to ski school. To take, I'm aware that there's even the galloping goose, sometimes they'll use that. But they'll stand there in the cold when they could get on the lift, but turns out the lift doesn't open for them early enough for them to get to ski school. So with their kids, so there's a disconnect in circulation and operations there that really needs to be coordinated with transit, whether it's ski or otherwise. That makes the transit component here part of that four-legged stool, if you will. It's got to be better than the galloping goose. It's got to be maybe a little more sophisticated, a little more capable, a little more flexible. I'm not sure what the components are, but transit is the key to making this work. Some people never use a bus where they live and where they come from, are not used to walking. But if there's something, they will use the bus here. And once they know about it, it's like, you know, best thing since sliced bread kind of thing. That is a component that you really need to plan for here in a big way.
Do you think having a detachable high-speed quad there is a little more beginner friendly?
Yep.
Also
Absolutely. The two chair, oh my gosh, we're back in the 70s. They're afraid of it.
Yeah, they're scared.
They won't use it. And they don't know how to get on it. It's, you know, and they've got kids, they got stuff. So I think that connectivity is gotta be part of the transit component to all of this, to moving people around. Because the concept is park once and all you need to do.
Right.
That's what it is.
Well,
Let's hear it.
also great vision. Yes, no, appreciate that. And we'll definitely. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time. Again, we have the boards.
May I comment?
What was that?
Hi, can I comment? This is Roz.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't see a hand raised. Go right ahead.
That's all right. I just wanted to confirm or get on board with the people who've been saying to replace list 7. It's really important. And also and replace list 7 earlier than later, because this whole discussion about list 7 development has been going on for years and years, and gets going and then maybe it stops again. I've seen it expand and contract many times, but the safety of lift 7 itself is really crucial. And I don't think the ski area, I think it'd be important for the ski area to replace that lift without having it be, having been paid for it or bribed for it or anything, but just get it on their list, because I know people have gotten hurt on it and it's just not very safe. So, and it could align better, like people have said, and I think that's really important. And also the traffic patterns that everyone's talked about really need studying, as everyone said. So thank you for offering this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Oh, see, I said we're gonna be done, and then you're like, nope, not yet.
Yeah, thanks, Roz. It's not only unsafe, but I think we realized how dependent we are on that lift. Because coming up to Christmas, I remember there was a tower that started leaning, and oh no, we got to fix this. And it was down to the wire, like we were ready to hit our busy season. And you look at it and go, wow, this does not work with just the gondola. We are screwed if this doesn't get going. And so I think it really leaves us susceptible to big
Well, there
problems.
could be a combination of a lift on lift 7 with a gondola, like on 1, you know, where people could get up to 7 and be able to catch the gondola from there to, you know, down to the mountain village or something. So it offers different pathways to get to where people need to go.
Great feedback, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty quiet. Lift 7 is a completely secret. Oh, I'm the director of lift maintenance. I've had the opportunity to work at Telluride for 27 years. I'm going into my 45th year working on ski lifts. Wow. Okay. But lift is safe. The updates that we have done over the years, but no. Chad, Chuck, before them, all right. Terry Fernal, those of you been around for a long time, have always been absolutely supportive. The lift is safe. I have issues with the lift. I think it served its life. I think it's time for a retrofit. I don't want to see a double. Chad, I've had these conversations. I think your transportation plans are great, but you guys aren't taking into consideration the cost of maintaining a lift for the population base that's only gonna use it a few months of the year. The cost of a detachable is immense. The cost of a gondola is multiplied. Those things everybody needs to think about. What are you willing to do? What do you want to have? We can update lift 7. I know people say it's scary. What some of that is the design of that lift in 75. The span, I think, is what people connotate to being unsafe or such. That's the fun part. It's a low tension ski lift. Salvage built. That's how they did that manufacturer. Sorry. But the newer lifts, high tension, span would never be a factor. We can build it for 100% download for transportation up and down. Granted, I'd have to run it pretty slow when we start running people downhill. If you can run it like Revelation is a fixed quad, triples I can go faster, quads have to go slower. It's code with transport with the state. I don't see us in any time soon, even with this development. This is me personally, not me as a Telski employee. The expense of building a detachable there is terrible. I think fixed grips or something that we could use if the town wanted to help, and help fund it like we do the gondola, that would be an option. Because as far as a profit, center or anything, it would be a losing proposition through the ski area to do that. There's just not the ridership. There's no intermediate, no beginner terrain to supplement the ride.
Thank you so much for that input. Thanks for that.
Sorry. Real quick, have you done a soil study of the?
We're not at that, yes,
Sure.
that is part of the process, but we're not at that.
Yeah, I've dug several holes down Pacific over the years.
Yeah.
And it could probably be a huge environmental credit, but I bet the gravel here is suitable to make concrete, because regardless of what goes here, it's gonna take a lot of concrete. And I think we should really look at using the material on site, pulling in a temporary concrete batch plant. You get the big trucks from Wagner off-road and internalize them, and there won't be 500 trucks driving up from Telluride gravel. But I'm almost positive that's gonna be good enough gravel once crushed to make concrete and asphalt for this project.
Great.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And Jack. All right. Thanks again.
There's gravel in there.
There's no additional comments, really. I got a lot of great feedback, expertise, concerns, questions, so this has been really valuable. And we look forward, I don't have a next step in this process right now. I should say our next meeting is this stage, but we will continue to keep everyone abreast. We'll communicate a little bit further out and a little bit more frequently. We will do so in the paper, as it was this time, social media, emails, and all of that. So please visit our website to sign up for our newsletters if you haven't done that already as well. But thank you again, everybody, for your time in this two-way conversation. I really appreciate it. So enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone virtually.
Thank you.
We get more softer snow on Stumper.
No, you just have to do that big snow all the way down.
I have to have that.
Oh, because,
We've been working pretty hard.
This is a big one.
all right.
But if you